with a big stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke in my face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, turn like Hunter muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I might keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you ain't down with that, then I got two words for you, suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, holding up the cup. Let's be busy 23, got me feeling way too sweet.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It is good to be with you here again this week. Not too long between drinks for us here at WRA because we launched a new show on Sunday, Making Chicken Salad, which was, it is a different show to what we do here at Wrestle Radio Australia. I want to thank Lachlan for joining the team and hosting that show, that fortnightly show that'll be on. It's something where we talk about, because here on this show, Wrestle Radio Australia, we just talk to Australian wrestlers and Australian wrestling, and we really pump up the Australian industry, which we love. And I love doing it. I've been doing it for the last 8 years, and it's something I'll continue to do as long as I can. But I also love talking the international wrestling. I love talking WWE, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, all of that sort of gear. Because of this show being what it is and is dedicated to Australian wrestling as we are here, couldn't do that here. So I pitched the idea to Lachlan, and luckily Lachlan came on board with it and is now hosting that show every fortnight, where we do talk about all the stuff international wise. Basically, we talk about what we think people internationally are making chicken salad from, or what we think is chicken shit in professional wrestling around the world. So I want to thank people too for getting behind the show, because we had a lot of nice reviews for the first episode. So thank you to you guys for that. And hopefully every fortnight you'll keep tuning in and seeing what we do there. I'm excited to see where we go with it, because I know Lachlan's got a few ideas and I've got a few ideas myself. So it'll be interesting to see where that show goes. And like I said, it's nice to talk about that stuff, the international stuff. Not nice at what we had to talk about that episode, because that episode was also all about the NXT, WWE NXT releases. So little more stuff has come to light after that, and I dare say we'll talk about that next fortnight on the show. So yeah. Normally we don't do this on Wrestle Radio Australia, but I want to do it because personally I love the guy. Happy birthday to the godfather of Australian wrestling, Davis Storm. Happy birthday, mate. Like I said, normally we don't do this on the show, but Davis is one of those guys that goes out of his way to help as many people as he can in the industry, and it's something I love and admire about the guy. So from the bottom of my heart, for everyone here at Wrestle Radio Australia, which is basically me and now Lachlan, happy birthday, mate. That is, New South Wales, please stay safe. It looks like the rest of the country at the moment is out of lockdown, or coming out of lockdown, or very soon to be out of lockdown. Up here in Queensland, we are out of lockdown now. Still have some restrictions when it comes to gathering and social distancing and all of that sort of thing, still wearing the masks outside and all of that. And hopefully that means that we'll be getting shows again up here really soon. So fingers crossed with that. But you guys in New South Wales, just stay safe, okay? If you have to go out, please wear a mask. Other than that, stay home, because the sooner you guys stay home, the sooner we can get the case numbers down, and we can see the PWAs, the IWAs, the FWAs, all of those guys come back and start putting on shows that we've all enjoyed for the past couple of years. And we're enjoying right up until old Delta came and gave us a good kick in the ass. So yeah, let's please just do what we have to do to get this over with, so we can get back to doing what we love doing. For us, though, make sure you subscribe to us on WRA. It's free. You can do it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts from. Please get behind us. Give us a 5-star if you're on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star. It helps us get inside more ears and helps the algorithm so people can see when shows are up or that the show even exists. And for that, because when you do that, it helps promote Australian wrestling. So you're basically helping us do what we is trying to do as a job, and that is help promote Australian wrestling. Please follow us on Facebook so you'll know when everything's up, Wrestle Radio Australia, or Spotify, Twitter, Instagram at Wrestle Radio AU. So we're there, and I'm there at Beast Eastman on Twitter. If you want to support the local industry, please subscribe to one of the streaming services they've got going on at the moment. Australian Wrestling Network's out there, MCW Online, MCW also on Fight, PWA, of course, have got all of their stuff now up on Fight, and PCW as well have their own streaming service. Please go and support them if you can. If you don't or can't support monetarily, stuff on YouTube. I know that a lot of places now are really. Oh, you also Deathmatch Down Under have got their stuff on the indie wrestling TV, independent wrestling TV, so IWTV. If you can't support monetarily, and I realize in this time that it's probably hard to do because money is probably tight in a lot of places. A lot of the stuff's up on YouTube now, and especially a lot of I know Deathmatch Down Under have released a few of their matches now on their YouTube channel, so go and check them out. Also, Riot City Wrestling have their stuff on YouTube. All of their shows are on YouTube. I know Mayhem have got a couple of their shows now on YouTube. I said Riot City, didn't I? Yeah. Wrestle Rampage have their last show up on YouTube, which I will get around to watching. It's just been one of those things, unfortunately. But yeah, please go and support as much as you can. If you can monetarily support, aside from subscribing to the services I talked about before, go to wrestlermerch.com and buy a t-shirt for one of the wrestlers, because that's a great way to support those guys individually. So if you can do that, if you can help in some way, shape, or form support Australian wrestling, I very much urge you to do so. If you want to get anything from Wrestle Radio Australia, like the WRA, the new logos here like this, they are up on redbubble.com. Just search out Wrestle Radio Australia on redbubble.com and the stuff's up there. Anything you buy from that, t-shirts, hoodies, all the other sort of stuff that's on there, any of the proceeds from that don't go to me, they don't go to the show even, they go to charities, Gotcha for Life and Beyond Blue, because they are two charities that we really do support here at Wrestle Radio Australia. That is all the plugs out of the way. Our guest this week is the Newy Pro, the Newy Pro champion, Carter Deams. Had a great chat to him a couple of weeks ago now. So I've had a couple in the can because of stuff. So we had a great chat to him a couple of weeks ago. Of course, he was, or still is, I guess. Well, I don't know what the deal is. He's was in a team with Matty Wahlberg, who is now in the WWE 205 Live. He's been on the last couple of weeks now. Doing really well there. So he's the tag team partner, as if you did know, or if you didn't know, tag team partner for the longest time. So we talk about a lot about that sort of stuff. If he felt like he was in the shadow of Matty coming out because of the strong character that Matty is, and had a really good chat with Carter. A really nice guy, really nice guy with a lot to say about the industry and that sort of stuff, and had a really, really good chat with him. But before that, what we're going to do is, because I mentioned to you before that since we recorded Making Chicken Salad, some stuff has happened since that regarding the WWE NXT releases. And former Bronson Reed, now Jonah again, I think. Not Jonah Rock, he's just Jonah, released a video about his release, and it's only a minute or so long. So I thought I would play that here, and then after that, we'll go to Carter Deams, Newy Pro champion, right here at Wrestle Radio Australia. Thanks for joining us, guys.
So I have had some time to reflect now, and some time to just process what has happened. And I was very shocked, very upset. As you know, this doesn't just affect me, it affects my wife as well. And we are here in a foreign country, but my wife is a super positive person, and she's kept me positive as well. And I just wanted to reach out to all you guys, and I'm just very thankful, the love and support that I've received online is just incredible. I was trending on Twitter, and that means a lot to me. It means a lot to me that, you know, a lot of you feel for me and will still continue to follow me no matter what. I did want to, you know, thank NXT. I want to thank Hunter and Sean for believing in me. I want to thank all the coaches, Terry Taylor, Scotty Tuhati, Norman Smiley, Steve Carino, those guys that I learned a lot from. And I wanted to thank, you know, all the boys backstage as well. It was a great locker room to be a part of. But, you know, I am staying positive, and I do believe I am bar none the best super heavyweight in the world. And I'll continue to prove that. So, as they say, one door closes and another one opens. Well, for me, many doors are open. And now it's just about which one I want to walk through. So, thank you very much for all the support and love, and please keep supporting. Thanks.
Carter Deams, thanks for joining us tonight, mate.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, You're you're probably one of those lucky champions from around the country that, like, because of COVID, you've probably got the longest reign in Newy Pro history at the moment.
I was having a bit of a chat with a couple of mates the other day. Me and another one of my mates from Newy are real big into UFC. And I was sort of just talking about how, like, Khabib versus Conor was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Because there's been such a gap. It feels so close. So I've been the champ for 3 years, but I've got like 3 defenses and like probably an active year, but it's been 3. So
yeah,
in 10 years time, you're going to see my however 1200 day reign and nobody else.
That's like, I was talking the other week to a guy that helps with the he helps with the PWI 500s.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know about like Aussie wrestlers and all that. He goes, "Oh, has there been any significant like lengthy like title reigns?" I've gone, "Mate, everyone.
Take your pick
Like,
this year, yeah,
there's
sure.
no matches. Everyone been a champion for a year. It's not exactly rocket science, mate."
And I don't think I'm lucky because I don't think I'm the type of wrestler that's like a long-term like champ. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm like somebody like a Rogers or an Ugg who's like this super heavyweight who could possibly beat this. I'm just a bloke. Anybody could beat me at any time. I could have had, the plan could have been like a 6-month reign, but it's been 3 years. So I'm just holding on for dear life.
Like the longest reigning transitional champion in history.
Yeah, for sure. Like, got my pop. As you know, like there's no mileage in a babyface champion. It's all about the chase. Had this long chase, win the belt, drop the belt in a couple of months. Nope. 3 years later. So now, like, even over like people like Bonza and J-Law, who are these big, super like grizzled old dudes, jacked up, you know, and I'm like, oh well, I had the belt longer. So how do you feel?
I made that
Bonza would be burning too. Bonza would be like, oh.
I made that joke with Rocky Monero the other day because he only literally just won the Inter-Commonwealth Championship in Melbourne. When they started their lockdown, I was like, "What is it with you, mate? Are you just trying? Is this some sort of plot for you to get your reigns longer?" He's like, "I'm not controlling anything around here."
I had the FWA Mercury title, and the show that I won it was the last show. All of lockdown happened, and then I had some things happen, and I sort of messaged and said, "Listen, I probably need to drop the belt. I don't think this is like I don't think I have like a long-term sort of commitment to your company anymore." So then the very next show back after lockdown, I dropped it, but then was the longest reigning Mercury champion. It was like turn up, win the belt, lockdown, come back and drop the belt. But I had like the longest reign until PT beat it the other day.
Longest reign, smallest defenses. You're like a Brock Lesnar reign.
I didn't do anything.
So how are you handling things with lockdown? Because I know New South Wales or Sydney in particular getting absolutely slammed at the moment, but you're sort of sitting up there at the Central Coast, not really as affected in the way of cases.
Okay. We're just sort of it's just that thing like wherever you go, you got to chuck a mask on. masks in gyms, masks at wrestling training, but we're all still sort of going. I just came from training this afternoon, gym as normal. Obviously, we're sort of feel like some sort of it's going to happen. Like it's inevitable that maybe it'll creep down, especially because Sydney's gone from 90 cases a day to like 170. So it's like it's ramping up there for real. So it's going to filter down, but I'm just sort of making the most of what we got at the moment, trying to get as many gym sessions in as possible and still do wrestling training. Because I know everybody at PWA in Sydney's they've been in lockdown for like a month now, and probably and another month to go minimum.
Month, yeah.
So trying not to take it for granted, trying to just like, it's been motivating for me because I know that like what sort of bloke are you if you're like, oh, I'll just skip training today, but there's people in Sydney who are like, just get me to training. So I've just been training more, trying to get to the gym more, just so it's not like taking the piss and, you know, just taking the piss of the opportunity that I can train. So it's been really good. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that something's going to pop up. But for the time being, everything's like all systems go, business as usual.
See, that's the thing too. I've noticed that when I see all these up here in Queensland, you see all these anti-mask guys and all that. I was like, it's a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
Like, dude, really, how much does it really affect your day? I mean, the only time it really affected me is because I had a big beard and I screwed up when I was trimming and I had to trim it all off. But it was itchy as fuck when I had the beard.
Yeah.
Now I've trimmed it down. I'm like,
I have underdeveloped facial hair that I call beard, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah,
I'm asthmatic, so like sometimes like a long stint in a mask will give me a bit of a hard time. And everyone goes, "Why don't you go get an exemption?" I'm just like, I'm not a pussy. Just like it's just fine. It's fine. Like, if I can cop it, then everyone else can. You know what I mean? It's whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like from what I've noticed, it's like 99% of the people are doing the right thing, and that 1% of the people that aren't doing the right thing. People like, I just like, if I see somebody out and about not wearing masks, I'll just stare at them and make them feel super uneasy. And if that was me, like a couple of times I've like got out of my car and not had my mask and started walking to the shops, and all these eyes will be on you, and I'll be like, oh God, give me my mask, give me my mask. And people, and that's good. You should be embarrassed. Let's stop being fucking idiot.
I must admit, I did that the other day. I got to about the quarter, nearly half the way there. I'm going, oh shit, and then turned around and I'm always looking at people walking past me going, forgot the mask, mate.
It's a walk of shame, isn't it? It's a walk of shame. It's so degrading.
I just got to go on. You know,
I don't like cardio at the best of times. Having to walk back to the car for a mask is not good.
And the funny thing is, because I work for like power sports. We deal in like old motorcycle stuff and all of that. Yeah. So our work gave us all those, those snooks. They're like
balaclava type ones.
Yeah, they're sort of like that. But mine, it looks like a bandana. So I'm wearing it out with my wife, and she's saying, "You look like you're about to rob every place we walk into."
Look like Nick Gage.
Yeah. Which is probably not the best thing at the moment, but hey, you know. So you guys are still, you technically can't run shows because is there a gathering thing, or is it?
I think it's that square meter rule. So we had a show for July 16 in a venue which it probably holds like 400 or 500 people, and we could have run like a show with like I think that it's like you can email, I'm just going to say the government, and sort of give them the room dimensions, the seating, sort of fixed seating, loose seating, and they'll give you like how many people you can have there basically like in attendance. And it was about 130, which is sort of like, that's like the bare minimum. You'd know from like promoting shows, like 130 sort of like once you pay all the boys, that's like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, it was almost worth it to like honor a couple of the tickets, but then it was also like, no offense to every wrestler in Newy, when you take, the 70% of our roster from Sydney and you fill it in with a lot of people from Newy, or just like rookies, like
like the trainees
and way down. Yeah. So you sort of advertising this, like the two matches that were announced were me and Sam Osborne for the heavyweight title, and then Dazza versus Mick Moretti, like two pretty good matches, to then replace them with me and Rookie. Yeah. You sort of advertise this great show. So we just made the call. But we probably could, but it's just, for what reason? You know what I mean?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a business too. So you need to sort of have that limit, which I think most people kind of understand, especially in this climate that when we're not running shows, we're not making money. So it's just like, what can we do?
A friend of mine said, like not that long ago, if you're running a wrestling show at a loss, you're just a mark. And I was like, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
We're all trying to make money. We're all trying to I do help a bit behind the scenes with Newy. Like we're all trying to make money, put bums in seats, and by selling out shows, can we give the boys a little bit more in their bank account, or can we maybe fly in an interstate at this time? But just like being happy with like a shit draw because you can run a show is just the most pointless thing ever.
Yeah.
It's better to put it on hold, wait till you can save your money, save the bumps, devise plans. What can we do better next time? Think about the storylines, and then we can come back, put 300, 400, 500 fucking people in the building, and actually make proper money.
Yeah, and especially when like if you're working to a reduced crowd like that, you're still going to go out and give them the 300 people show.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like I'm sort of killing myself for 100 people, which is fine to do, but it's like at the end of the day, I'd rather do it when I can have everyone properly there and the vibes right. And
or you get the other end of the scale, which is like people that maybe do phone it in a little bit, but then it's, this family's first time at a show and they don't really like the show. So you don't want to like burn a family because somebody didn't put in effort because like everything's died. And it just would have been like, I call it a passion killer. It would have been a passion killer of a show. Just have to do all this ring crew, this big building with not this many people in it. Yeah, it just would have been no good. So yeah, we're all on hold for the time being. And plus our roster's 70% from Sydney anyway. So.
And not to mention, like you'd know yourself, that first show back when you had that packed house, there's no real feeling like that, is there?
No, it's unreal. Because I think we did a Hoos, like we did a couple of Hoos shows, but our first show back was the first City Hall. Yeah. So it was like new venue, 500 people, sold out. Like it was all just big time. It was just so good. It was the best.
And so that's kind of a new like home for you now, isn't it? That City Hall.
Yeah, it's like a tough place it's a venue that requires the most like attention. The other venue that we've sort of run out before, real like low maintenance, like here's your dates for the year, here's the empty building, here's the the key to the sound box, and that's pretty much it. But these shows require like pretty much from when you confirm the date with the building requires at least 7 days a week sort of attention. As promoting it just takes that time, whether it's just if I want to ask a question about like a light rig, I have to email and I have to wait the day for the person to email back, and then something that could have taken 5 minutes has taken a day.
Yeah.
So they're just so large scale.
Yeah, when you used to run little like church halls, when you're bringing in all your AV equipment yourself and all that stuff, and then when you go to that big venue and there's actually someone employed to do the sound, and then you're like, oh, this is big time.
They wanted to give us people to like sell merch. I was like, we usually just stick a rookie back there.
Yeah,
and, it's all real professional though, and it's like it was a real good shock. I think it gave everybody a good taste into like how professional things could be. And it was like, I won't say perfectly run because shows are never perfectly run, but it was really well run. I think everybody was well taken care of. All the facilities were really good. The crowd was great. So yeah, I don't think it's something we could do like monthly. Like I think there's not many companies, indie companies in general, just in the world that are getting 550, 500, 600 people. Like, it's not happening.
No, I think not a month anyway. Not like
like places like PWA and MCW. You're probably getting like your 350, 300, 400, maybe sometimes 500, maybe sometimes 250. Just depends. But I don't think anyone can be like. I think it's just you can't just go, especially for the ticket prices too, because the tickets are a little bit more expensive. So instead of like $20, they're $36 or they're $40 or they're $50. You can't ask families to just go $200 a month to come watch us. You got to really be smart about it. So it's probably like that the WWE would call it the big four. You have 4 throughout the year or 3, or it just depends.
Yeah.
We had 3 3 this year, but then with COVID, it sort of looked at 2, and then maybe 1 now. So you just don't know. But yeah, it's an unreal building.
Especially with like where you are in Newy, if the Knights are on fire, you'd probably have a hard time drawing against it in that area.
Yeah,
because everyone just goes to Marathon or whatever the stadium is called now.
Almost like an impossible task. There was not this year, but a couple of years ago, probably 2 or 3. It was like PWA were running, Newy were running, IWA were running, Rock and Roll were running, but all like respective of each other's sort of schedules. So they were all sort of, I'm pretty sure all the promoters sort of had a group chat and be like, here are our dates, here are our dates. But it worked out that pretty much we're wrestling every weekend.
Yeah.
But then it would be like, well, then this weekend in Newy is a Knights game. So we can't run a wrestling show in Newy against the Knights. So it was just a mess. Now it's a little bit more just Newy and PWA. And then Newy tends to be on like a Friday night now. So even if it was in the same weekend, you can sort of do like a Good Friday, Saturday. And then we do still work like pretty closely with IWA. Like we're pretty friendly with all the promoters there. So, there's never really like a big clash of dates. If we have to try and take care of everyone, and I mean everyone, all the littler companies, sometimes you just got to be savage, unfortunately, and just go, listen, if we don't run this day, we just won't run at all. And that's not an option. So, and we can't, and you can't run against the Knights because
it's the Knights. It's the Knights, yeah. Yeah, because I still remember back, and this is years ago. Geez, it'd be 30 years ago. Yeah, that's how old I am. 30 years ago, I was I played rugby league when I was a kid, and I played for South Australia. And the national championships were in Newy. And over the weekend was a Newcastle game. It was Newcastle Canberra, and we got to do the lap of honour around Marathon Stadium. And that's something even now, like talking about it, I get goosebumps because just hearing the crowd. And I couldn't imagine having to draw against that.
I'm not a big, I've never been a foot like an NRL guy. But last year I went to a game, and it was the Knights versus the Roosters. And throughout my lifetime, so I was born in 97. I think they won the grand final in 97 and then 2001. So I say not really in my lifetime as they won. And then in my memory, the Knights have always been terrible. They've sucked for so long. And I've turned up and they're versing the Roosters, who at the time were, I think they'd already won 3 in a row or like whatever they'd done. And it was the time that the Knights won 40-6 or something hectic. And I'm in the stands at McDonald Jones or whatever the stadium's called now with 20, 30,000 people. It's just electric. And I'm there just going, this is the best day of my fucking life. And I don't even like doing that much. It was insanely good. And then I went back a couple of weeks, and it wasn't, I think it might have been Canberra or the Warriors or something, a team that not as big as the Roosters, and the Knights lost. And then it was terrible. So crowd was flat. Crowd was empty. It was like rainy, and the Knights lost. I was like, so it is bad at times.
Yeah, well, so you can't always book the finish, mate.
I should have just left that. We left on a high.
We've been talking a lot about the business and the let's talk about you. For the longest time, when you were with Matty as the Babes, you were sort of like basically always or mostly Newy Pro. And then sort of Matty moved off to PWA and you sort of stayed in Newy Pro. Was that something that was sort of like a plan that you sort of wanted to establish yourself more as a singles person there? Like Matty's established himself in PWA, just so you had that sort of separate identity sort of thing?
It was sort of like a week by week thing. The thing that does make me laugh is people look back at the Babes like we had this incredible run, sort of like the velocities now, like we had like this string of amazing matches. It didn't really happen. We had good matches. Our first sort of big shot was winning Kings of the Castle at Newy, which again, I attribute to, I always say at the time, because the business has changed amazingly, even just the quality of matches. But the match that we had, me and Wahlberg, and I'll refer to him as Wahlberg, Grayson Waller, for those that don't know, versus Matt Diamond and Caveman Ark. And it was great. real Newy Pro, real Gargari finish, real like referee pull type ejection spots, like that sort of match. It was great. And me and Wahlberg were both maybe 8 months in winning a main event at Newy. And everyone was sort of like, this is unprecedented. This doesn't happen very often. It was still like sort of a time in wrestling that, you know, you could probably bank on Bonza winning and Robbie winning, and that's it. And they were the two guys that no, like you could tic tac between them two, and that's a safe bet. Like nobody
young
was
guys
really delving into the pushing the young blokes just yet.
Yeah, the young guys served their time. They didn't really
We won, and then that's when I sort of did the thing with Farley, and that was another thing where it was like, and we just got, it was just unfortunate for us at the time because probably at a time triggers could have been pulled on us. There was always that underlying thing of like, I'm going away. So I know, you know, pulling back the curtain, I think there was definitely a PWA tag title run that had our name on it around that time. But just because I was going away, there's no like long-term things you can do. Then when I went away, that's when Wahlberg sort of developed by necessity, because he sort of found that with, at least not without me as in the sense that I was carrying him, but like we were a tag team. He didn't have this. So he sort of done his like shoot, work, shoot promo at Call the Arms, where he was talking about how he didn't get booked, and that sort of went into the Jimmy Havoc thing. And then it was sort of around that time where when I went back, I just sort of presumed that we'd pick up where we left it. Because if anything, my return gave us a lot more momentum than we had because people were excited. And then that New Japan sort of thing was pretty new and fresh. So I sort of felt like I was looked upon quite fondly because, you know, out of all these, you know, rookies and people, the tryouts in Melbourne, I was picked. So I felt good. But also Wahlberg was just fucking flying.
Yeah.
Give him a chance on a microphone. And then I sort of thought it was like, what's going to happen is, it was around the time he was doing Jimmy Havoc. Because he's either going to do really well against Jimmy Havoc and they're going to go, like, see you later, go to the top, or he's going to probably get exposed for being green because we were green at the time, and he'll just get put back with me and then we'll do it. But he killed it. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, actually, nah. Go jump back with your tag partner.
I know you did really well, mate, but tag me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So then I sort of was like stuck because I was like, well, he's going to do all these things on his own, and I'm going to. We still had tag matches along the way, but they were definitely like tag. Like, I'll take the heat, you do the comeback, you do the finish, you call out your next single opponent, and I'll be there, but it's all for you.
Yeah.
And I had some cool matches along the way, but not within any end goal for me. And this is also under the presumption at the time that I was going to the New Japan Dojo, which people tend to forget about. You can look up the post. I had a spot at the New Japan Dojo. I can screenshot the messages with Farley's son if you like, where I had to pull out because I broke my hand. It just for the first 2 years of my career.
Was that with Sebi? Or was that
we were supposed to go at the same time. Yeah,
you're the reason.
I probably am, to be honest. But my inside joke with myself was like, imagine if I went and one dude like escaped in the middle of the night and then I stayed. I look like a hero. I look like tough as nails. So it probably would have been cool. But
well, that's the thing, like, because I had him on, I think about a month ago, and we were talking about it, and his thing was like, I probably would have been all right if I had someone else that spoke English.
100%. Even New Zealand, dude. Even New Zealand was the same. If I didn't have Ben Payne or Andrew, it would have been way harder. Yeah, but the first sort of 2 years of my career, it would be like everything's going really well, but I was always like penciled in to leave, so nobody was ever really pulling any triggers on me. Yeah. Which is like from their point of view, it's fair enough because you can't really plan something unless it's planned something like we're going to build him up, then like faking that he's going to get injured and then go away. But then everyone knows where you're going away, so there's no point of doing it. And and the one thing that I now like helping with promotion, the one thing that you look for is consistency. Like, can this wrestler be here every time? And I couldn't, and I get it. The thing that was great, and it's sort of like some of the best booking that we've done in Newy, completely on accident, was that I had the gauntlet still from winning it with Matty, and I needed to get rid of it so I could go away. And the story ended up being that Rogers didn't want to fight Jackson Kelly because of all the interferences. So he left the belt behind, where he'd actually just gone to America. So then I'd wrestled heel. It was me and Wahlberg versus SMS. Wrestled heel that show. Kelly was awarded the belt on default because Rogers had forfeited. And then I threw down my gauntlet, like Money in the Bank style, big baby face, like turn, and then lost. And that was my coming out party. I'd never got a reaction like that before. It was insane. And that's when the whole like hometown sort of hero thing came out, like Newy chance. It was great. Like I was getting opportunities I didn't deserve yet. I was only like 9 months into the business. Like had no business main eventing shows that had Robbie and Bonza, but here I am, you know. And then I was effectively out of the story. I lost the gauntlet. I lost the championship. I'm going away. But then I did the pulled out, and I could sort of see Wahlberg getting his thing at PWA. I said to myself, I was like, if I don't pitch something, I'm going to be in the mix. And it's a dangerous place to be in the mix, because if there's a choice between you and 7 guys, what are your chances? So I went to Newy and I sort of presented this idea. I said, I think there's a match here between me and Rogers. He like left with the belt. I threw down my gauntlet to sort of protect the company's honor, but then he's come back, instant rematch, and got his belt back, and I helped him win it. So there's a match there. I said, we'll do it, because Rogers was 3 years undefeated, hadn't taken like a L, was squashing people. It was real. Nobody had ever called him out, so I called him out, and I think we did put 350 in Charlestown Bowling Club, which was like an unheard of number for a show that wasn't like a Rumble or the anniversary. So that was really nice to me, that like a feud had sort of put all these bums in seats, and it went really well. It got over. I was sort of performing at a pretty good level, and I'd sort of left the angle sort of open, like, and if it goes well, we could potentially do this down the line. But if not, we can just call it. I'll lose. That's fine. All good. And then, I think because I was a Hoos rookie, I was training for Newy, I just got a little bit of favour over probably a couple of people from PWA. Similarly, how, a lot of the PWA rookies, it's just how it works. It's just, you're training at their academy. So
you're in front of them all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And like Hoff, who's sort of in charge, is one of my best mates. Like, hang out as friends, have a lot of the same interests. We both like the Lakers. Peep that jersey in the background. So I just sort of presented, and then he just liked it, and we sort of ran with it, and then won the Rumble, won the belt, and then it just was like one of those things where I just felt like I could see Wahlberg going so well. He's beating Havoc, doing the UG match, and I was just like, I'm ability-wise, I'm good enough to be like having those matches. I always backed myself in the ring. There's certain parts of my game that I don't have like him, sort of like the character and, the showmanship. And I'm fully aware of that, or I was aware of that at the time. But I know that if you can get me in a spot where I can just wrestle, I'll be 100%. And give me like the angle that I can tell the story around, and I'm fine. Wahlberg was the type of guy that could make an angle out of nothing.
Yeah.
You could give him like a water bottle and a pair of pants, and he'd be like, make this like a match and sell this to me. Where if you give me like, here's the villain and here's what we want you to do with it, what are you going to do with it? If you give me some dot points, I'll be fine. But Wahlberg could just like snap his fingers and here's the angle. And it ended up being like some sort of weird like tag partners, one company, singles. And then along the way, we had these big like comeback tours where people like the Babes are getting back together, and we'd have like these sick tag matches, and we'd always be really over. And despite us never really having this long run, this long like, they were the PW, we just were like a tag team. But because we become such good singles wrestlers on our own, we kept having like these comeback matches and being, oh, the babes are back together. It's like, well, we only really tagged for a couple of months, maybe a year, and we didn't ever stop tagging. So how did we come back? It's just like, it was all real funny. Just the way that people used to advertise us was really funny. Just like, oh, the babes are back. It was like, well, we didn't leave.
No.
We just...
And I think it's because the two of you had the chemistry you both have in the ring together, is that it seemed like you guys had been together for years.
Yeah, well,
if that makes sense.
That's sort of the that was the reason that we ended up getting sort of put together, was the chemistry. And we both been training for a couple of months or probably a year and hadn't met each other. And then I'd sort of seen, I went to did a ring crew at PWA, I met him, and then everyone sort of said, oh, you and Wahlberg are very similar. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, it's like, you both talk about rap music. You both like basketball. You both sort of tall, sort of skinny.
Yeah, but he sells out. He sells out for any team. He'll wear any jersey. So
yeah, it's like we've just had a lot of common interests, and then we ended up talking. And I said, oh, what sort of gimmicks you thinking about doing? And they were sort of similar. They were both just sort of I guess what we both brought to the babes. They were sort of similar, and then we were just like, there's room for a tag team. And history would show, throughout wrestling, even just locally or in the world, a lot of people start in tag teams. It's a great way to get out there. It's easy to book tag teams. It's easy to book singles matches around tag teams. So we just presented this, and we debuted on the same Who show. And there's the whole big story between the blonde hair and everything that eventually was it. But we'd had a tag match, him blonde, me not blonde, had no intention of being the babes, just Carter and Wahlberg tagging, and we already had intentions of tagging, but yeah, just everything fell into place once, give us a couple of opportunities, and yeah, it was as easy as that, really.
Yeah. And you and it's kind of almost funny because you ended up going to PWA in the end and finishing off his sort of feud with Mick Moretti. He was sort of the slide in for that match.
Yeah, I'd been crying out for an opportunity at PWA. I put a lot of work into myself.
Do you think it was the fact that they had Wahlberg? They're like, well, if we bring him in.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I don't have any, that's not fair about it at all. It's just
it is what it is.
Fully sit and admit he's much better than me. Hence his contract. You know what I mean? I'm not some mark that's oh no, it could have been me. There was maybe a little part of me early days of seeing him, but as I saw him develop, I was like, oh, I'm not there yet. And I knew it. I knew that I wasn't. I knew that he couldn't stick me in the ring with a microphone and get the crowd engaged. I knew he couldn't do it, but I knew he did it. So I was like, well, but with the sort of the things I was doing at Newy, I was like, well, I've been given more mic time, done more promos, more meaningful matches and angles. I've had more main events. I'm in better shape. I just think I'm all around better. I'd like to take that to probably the bigger sort of stage now, which was PWA Black Label. And it's just a hard place to break into. I don't have any other, maybe if I was part of the PWA Academy, it's back to that sort of same thing that we just sort of spoke about. It's they've got, and this is just literally off the top of my head, they got Wahlberg, Paris, Jude, Ricky, Osborne, Will Keatis, Big Fudge. That's 8 people. Just there's double that.
Yeah.
Who could realistically go into a singles main event program. Why would they pick the guy that's not grinding in their academy? That's probably what it come down to. Now, if you put me up against all those wrestlers, you put me up against Sam Osborne. He's a much better wrestler than me in the sense that, again, his character's more fleshed out than mine. He's much more handsome. Same as Ricky. Ricky, again, it's that character thing. I know my weaknesses. Ricky's character is much more fleshed out. He's much more technical in the ring. But also, I think, I don't want to sound like a cocky prick or anything, but I think if your job was to argue that Carter Deams is a better wrestler than example wrestler A, I feel like you could make an argument for me. So, sort of the same sort of concept of like, can you argue that LeBron James is better all time than Michael Jordan, regardless of what you think? Now, we could all probably sit here and go, yeah, MJ is the GOAT. But if my job for the day was to argue LeBron, I could make it happen. There are points that make him better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from a holistic call, they're all probably better than me at wrestling, those 5, 6, 7 guys. But also, if you give me the chance, I could do as good a job as them. But, you know, you add everything together, the character, the look, the training academy, the promos, and it's an easy call. And I think another thing that I consider when booking and when promoting is like, okay, we could use this guy, but are they using them in PWA? Because you don't want to be the person that's doing anything second because it looks recycled or it looks done. So if PWA then go and put me in this big singles angle that I've just done, they look behind the 8 ball. And similarly, like, we could look at somebody like Ricky and go, okay, maybe we could push Ricky towards our main title, but he's just won like a big main title. You don't want to be the people that do it second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's always that respect for both companies doing everything a little bit differently. And the other thing, the unwritten sort of thing is like, we would never just chuck Ricky on like our show and just job him out real quick because he's the PWA champ. Similarly, sort of what PWA haven't done all that often with me is like job me out for at least no reason.
Yeah.
Anytime I lost as the Newy Pro champion, I was at least propelling Wahlberg into like a bigger angle or something like that. So
Yeah.
there's heaps of things that go into it. There's a million different reasons.
Yeah,
Probably just comes down to the fact that I just wasn't as good as a lot of the guys there, to be honest.
And when you lost to Moretti, it wasn't a squash match. You guys went the limit.
Yeah,
And
well, that's
you know what I mean. It's about yeah.
And and I've had people come up to me, like I've been on PWA shows before for 4 years or so, and I still have people come up to me. They'll see me wrestle singles and go, "I had no idea you could wrestle." I've been doing for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, the only thing I'm good at in wrestling is the actual match. Like, that's the thing I am best at. Like, I understand if you go, that's the first time I've seen you do a promo, because it's not my strength. But I've been having pretty good matches for a long, pretty time. That's what I'm good at, like the actual wrestling part of it. So I think a lot of people will like see me have this match with Murray and like, oh shit, Carter can pretty handy in the ring. I was like, well, yeah, like I'm trained. I go to training.
So how do you work on those holes in the game? Like, how do you work on, because like you said, the wrestling is a strong point for you. Your weaker points are sort of like character and your promos. How do you work on improving that side of it?
I think the one thing that you got to do is just admit it. It's like the first step to healing like an addiction is admitting you've got a problem. I think that was one thing for me where I was like, maybe a couple of months of my career I was like stubborn. I was like, I'm fucking sick of wrestling. Maybe that was being justified by a couple of good performances, but also there's so much more that goes into it. So I think I had to really sit down with myself and go, okay. And it's probably more like, I wouldn't say my character work was ever bad. Like, I think I fit really well into the babes. I was a good babe. But then when Wahlberg did the singles thing and really like started doing the babes thing and better, I couldn't do that as well and worse. But then that left me sort of like a bit of a blank slate. Like, well, then what am I?
Yeah.
So I had to like then figure that out. And then, and I would ask people, like I wrestled Mick Moretti at the City Hall show, and I sort of said, like, presented questions like, this is my weakness, and again, probably Mick's strength, so it's a perfect opponent, but also like, I'm thinking about doing this here just so I could highlight this part of my character work. Like that, like maybe sacrificing a little bit of like wrestling, but I want to do a character spot, something I'm not comfortable with, but I think it's necessary that I need to do. And now I think it's a bit more natural now. I think my character work's quite up there and going really well. And I've like looked back at a lot of my old promos, and I don't think I ever did like a bad promo, but I also didn't do anything groundbreaking because they never had an edge. And I think promos consist of a lot of things. There's like, you know, the main one being dialogue. I think my dialogue was always good. That I could say something and like, I've had good feedback from like people saying you can really make like, I sort of said that I wasn't very good at it. So I think it's a skill that I've developed. You can make a match out of anything. And I sort of look at it like I was actually having this, like, I was complaining to my girlfriend the other day about like bad promos. And I said, if I got a match, somebody announced me in a match and I couldn't think of a promo to do, I wouldn't do one. And I think that's something that people don't do. They go, got to do a promo. What can it be on? And if you got to think about it, there's not a promo there. And that's fine. Not every match needs one. But if you put me with, let's just say, like one of the rookies who's like Shay Cassidy, there's probably not a story there. Yeah, you could do something classic like teacher student, but that's shit. That's been done. There's not a story there. So we would go out, we would wrestle our 4, 5, 6 minute match, and that'd be it. But if you're having like a main event, there's got to be a story there. There's got to be. Otherwise, it shouldn't be the main.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of guys try and force these promos that don't really need to happen. It's like this person versus this person. They've had no interactions on the shows. They have no animosity. Their gimmicks don't lick. What are you going to do the promo on? You're going to be like, oh, I'm going to prove myself in this company. Like, fuck, okay, yeah, great. Fuck, you're cool. Like as a promoter, or call myself a promoter, if somebody sends me a promo and it goes, I'm going to prove myself in the company, I don't want it. I don't want it. You know what I mean? Like, prove yourself. Like, okay, terrific. You're going to prove yourself, but you're actually losing this match, and we probably won't book your next show. So, you know what I mean? It's just so deep. I think by me sitting down, going, I need to actually put character things in the promos, because I can say Spitfire, I can say all this nasty shit. I can be like, oh, you know, you and I had this old heat from old training days, and you know, we're not friends, blah 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 blah. But if there's nothing in it, it's just they're just words, aren't they? And
yeah,
I just think I had to make a conscious effort to admit that I had a problem and work on it. Similar to any issue, like admit that it's there and then seek advice. That was a big one. And asking people that have an idea about what they're talking about. Would I go to, I don't want to say anyone from like to offend them, but would I go to like,
you wouldn't get a Rogers to ask him about promo work?
Well, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Probably a good example. But would I go to like fucking Goldberg and be like, hey man, how do you do comedy?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't know. So I was like, okay, I've got a weakness in my character, but I've got a match coming up with Mick Moretti, who's like the character king. So I'll ask him. Same as anything. It's like, oh, I'm having a bit of trouble putting together main events, but I'm in a match with Robbie. So like, I'll you know, how does he do it? You know what I mean? It's like, you got to be honest.
Yeah.
Honesty. There's so many people that dig their heels and go, nah, I don't need to change. Don't need to train. Don't need to do any of that. And they don't ever get anywhere. And I train people to wrestle. I'm the head trainer at Newy Pro. It's my job to, but I also know that there's deficiencies in my game that need training, and I seek out training from people like Bonza, people like Hoff, people like Robbie or Mick, people that are just the best, because that's why they're the best. It's just stubbornness. Stubbornness is the problem. It's terrible.
My key thing for it is that when I'm cutting a promo, for that minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I need to believe what I'm saying. I need to be able to look in that camera and just be like you might be one of the best wrestlers going around, but my guy is better.
Yeah.
And this is why. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And if I can't,
something I like too.
Yeah, if I can't believe it, because you see some guys and they cut a promo and go, well, I didn't believe a fucking second of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't believe that at all.
Saying like, it's just you turned up to 11, like it's a really classic thing. And I think I took that too literally. So if you watch a lot of my matches, I like sort of walk around really sarcastic, easygoing, chatting to people in the crowd. That's who I am. That's me turned up to 11. Like turning me up to 11 is not that interesting. I'm just a pretty friendly guy, likes to talk to people, like a bit sarcastic. Where he takes somebody like Wahlberg, who's like a super competitive, super charismatic dude. You turn him up to 11 and suddenly you've got money. Or somebody like, you know, Rig, turn him up to 11. He's like this super like footy genius, like brawler, brick, brick wall type guy. It's interesting. You turn me, a friendly 24-year-old dad from Newy, like not that interesting.
Well, I mean, I'd beg to differ, but just being by how popular you seem. So, I mean, it works. It's obviously working in certain circles, mate.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I guess.
But being that you're one of the head trainers down at the House of Free Fighting, who do you see coming through now in the next wave? People talk about Ben Braxton and all of that thing. Is he's obviously one of the standouts? Are there people sort of like behind him now that are already nipping at his heels to push them? Or
I think Ben Braxton has best in the country ability, without question. I can't imagine there being somebody lying around like one of the training schools around Australia that is more impressive. The only person I sort of think of is Delta. And I've been very impressed with Delta just through social media, her gear. I saw her do a moonsault the other night. Like, she looks the goods. There's obviously Daz, but he's like more experienced than Ben Braxton. So I wouldn't say he's next, but at least from like a PWA sort of perspective, he's definitely still like an untapped commodity. He's unbelievable. Ben Braxton is a killer. He's just got a few things that he's got to like refine, like we all do, and then he's like right there. And the other person I always put over is Rita Stone. And
yes, that was an
between Rita Stone and Ben Braxton. The reason that you hear so much about them is because I constantly tell people all the time. Anybody that will listen, and that's sort of like that's motivating for me as a coach. I look forward to going to training. I look forward to seeing what they're doing, and I in a completely humble way, I see parts of myself in them. I see like little intricacies that we've spoken about and that they'll include in like a match, or I'll just flat out agent like one of their matches with them because they'll ask me for help. And as a coach, there's nothing more flattering than somebody asking you help, because although you're coaching and you're there to help, it's not always welcome.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, like pre-COVID, I presented like a little exercise. It's basically like a move scale. So you sort of start at 0, which is just like your sort of basic strikes, and then 10's your finish. And you sort of go through like 0 to 10, like how you would progress your moves, like your false finishes or your fire. And I said, I was like, if anyone wants any help with it, just let me. And I think 3 people asked. Rita Stone, Ben Braxton, and Bob the Viking. And if somebody was to ask me, who are the 3 people that you would say, at least from my experience, I don't know, like PWA, I don't know what's going on there, but at least from you, I'd say Ben Braxton, like Rita Stone, and Bob the Viking, without question. They're the hungriest, they're the hardest working, they're the most dedicated, they get it, they constantly have good matches. And that, I think something that's underrated is that going out on a show these days, there's not the leniency for somebody to be like bad. There's no like rookie leniency anymore, in my opinion. I think when I sort of started, you could chuck somebody on a show and sort of see how they go. And if they don't do that well, it's like, oh, give them a couple more months of training. But debuting on such a big platform, it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
And they constantly swim. You know, put Rita Stone in, always just her first match was like a trios. It's like, okay, she did well. Give her a bit longer. Next show in a tag match, she did well. Next show, she's beating CJ Phoenix with a 450 splash. Like next show, next match, she's doing a trios on Fight TV at PWA in front of the whole world doing a 450 splash. It's like,
yeah.
It's, I think, sort of similar to like what me and Wahlberg did. Like, sure, we got put in a position that we weren't ready for, but we did well.
Yeah.
So if we had a fail, that's fine. But there's a lot of a lot of rookies encourage themselves to get on shows quicker because like, I'm ready. And they're like, okay, you're ready. Show me. And then they clearly aren't when they go out there. But every time I've challenged Rita Stone or Ben Braxton or Bob the Viking as well, they've always excelled. They've always done really well. And at the end of the day, forget the gimmick, forget the, sell the merch, forget the promos. At the end of the day, you have to have a good wrestling match.
Yeah.
They come on to watch wrestling. I got to their heavyweight title pretty much without a gimmick, purely just on wrestling ability or having matches. it's an underrated skill, the actual having the match. Everyone's like, oh, what's your gimmick? What's this? What's this? And they're important. But you can't stick somebody out there with a gimmick that can't wrestle. You won't see it.
We used to back in the day when Cray and I used to book RC Dub. There used to be the tag team Smash, the Super Mega Action Superheroes, and they always had like a group of bad guys after them. We used to call them the putties, and they were just full body suits with masks. And so you could throw a couple of rookies in there. It's like, well, if they suck, everyone is expecting them to suck because they're putties. If they're good, then we know. That way you're not burning someone who look, I think they've got potential. I'm not quite sure if they're ready. Let's chuck the mask on them. Yeah. See how they do. And then because like if you come out there and do something and shit the bed, people are going to remember that the next time. And like the first impression is always the most lasting.
I say shitting the bed so often. It's something I harp on about. I literally try and devise ways for rookies to not shit the bed. And it's just...
And it's the hardest thing too, is to try and convince the people that are like, I'm ready to go. And for you to go, look, you think you're ready to go. And like, I don't want to put you out there and have something happen where you can't recover from.
100%. And I always look at like rookies. Then I sort of use me and Wahlberg as the example. Like, you don't want to debut and be the guy that's getting squashed. You want to be the guy that could debut pretty much main event ready. Why not? Yeah. It's happened. Yeah. It happened with me and Wahlberg. I know that there was a period of time where Daz was sort of at me and Reed going, I think I'm ready. And we're like, just wait, just chill, just wait, flesh it out a bit more. And then he debuted, and then he was like, main eventing not that long after. Same with Ben Braxton. He was like, I think I'm ready. He got squashed by Bonds on a show, and he's like, I think I'm ready for more than that. I was like, just wait. Then he main evented Kings of the Castle with Kellyanne, Tyson Reed, and Steph and all that. Same as Rita Stone. It's like she was scheduled to debut before the first COVID. She was really ready then. Then had all that year or year and a half of a break, bit more training, fleshed out, and then is now having like main event level matches at Newy. It's just like, why are you so itching to get on to probably just lose? Wouldn't you rather wait 6 more months, another year? But when it's time, we could just go, yeah, it's you and Bonza tonight. You got 15 minutes, close the show for us. Like, why not?
Yeah, I think Daz are really benefited from doing those IWA tours as well.
Yeah.
Because he got like night after night where he could flesh out his stuff and get like, oh, that worked, that didn't work, I won't do that tonight. Or do this, do that.
And I think he really needed that. It's one thing to be over at like a Who show where you've invited 20 of your family. It's one thing to be over there. But when you can go out in Dubbo, people you've never seen before, and you can be over, that's why I think that was a good thing for him to just realize that he was onto something really special. Now,
and it's so harsh to tell someone too when they go, oh no, didn't you hear me out there? I killed out there. I said, well, your family are there, mate. Like
it's your family.
All of your mates are there. Of course they pop for you. They're not going to not pop for you.
I think if you put Daz on any show in the country, pardoning probably the champion and the person that the champion would be wrestling, he would be the most over person on any card, just on the gimmick. He was the most over person in our trios match at PWA, and it was like his second match at PWA. You know what I mean? It's just money, and he's so good in the ring too. Like, there's never a time where you look at his match and go, oh, he's really hiding behind a gimmick. If anything, like, his wrestling's better than his gimmick, and he's really good.
Yeah. Well, you guys have got all things being equal and everything being okay. You've got the Newy Pro Rumble coming up on the September the 3rd. It's at the City Hall.
Yeah.
Because Matt Diamond is Matt Diamond still injured, or because normally you have a champion versus champion match on that night, don't you?
Yeah, I have no idea what Matt Diamond's up to. For those that know Matt Diamond, he has at least one injury at any given time. So,
and he's got like Wolverine level healing, so it's like you don't quite know if it's
or just like some pain tolerance. Like, I could go up to him before a match and be like any injuries, and he'd go, yeah, shoulders beat up, ankles beat up, my left toe is terrible. And I'd be like, "Oh, well, do you want to take it easy?" And he'd go, "No, I'm fine." I think he's okay. I think it was originally 6 weeks. So he was going to miss our show, but he was going to be fine for the run for this show.
Okay.
So it'll probably happen. That'll be at least the scheduled match, whether the show happens or not.
Yeah. Well, aside from that, who would if you're a betting person, who would you put your money on for the Rumble?
Oh.
Would it be a time for a Braxton to step out and maybe get a shot, or are we looking at well, it depends if Bonzi can make it up. It depends what's going on with everything.
Oh, you don't want to be the guy that, says the overwhelming favorite, do you?
No.
So who do you think's going to win, the NRL this year, the Storm? Yeah, good call, brother. That's a good call. Who do you think's going to win the NBA? I think the Brooklyn are looking good next year. Yeah, we get it. But I think Daz is the guy that's there. He's right. He's right there. He's right there. He's awaiting an explosion. He's done all the paying of the dues. He's done always even the little things. He's done all his ring crews, all his training, all his promos, he's been in the gym. He's had great matches. He was probably robbed of one, last time him and Diamond wrestled. So I think he's absolutely due. But there's 30 people in a Rumble. I wouldn't say maybe somebody like Charlie Evans as well. I think she is a similar sort of thing as Daz. She's come back and she's had some incredible matches, but nobody's quite pulled a trigger just yet. And I think a Rumble's the perfect thing to just pull a trigger for yourself. That's what I did. I think that was when I won the Newy Pro Rumble. I think that was even though I'd had a title match and had a few big matches before, I think winning the Rumble, that's people look at you and go, yeah, no, that guy could be the champion 100%. So I look at Daz and I look at Charlie and I go, yeah, that would be my 2 picks.
I've always got one of my favorite workers in Newy Pro at the moment, or for a while now, has been Rig. I just love, I love the look. I love the character. That cannonball splat is one of the most devastating looking things that I've ever. No, she's right.
Lay under it. Lay under it.
I'm a manager, mate. It's a one bump a year thing, and I took a bump, so I'm done.
There's sort of this funny little conversation that goes around, because we did a lot of trios matches as Team Hoos with Rig, and obviously, but even him and I are pretty good mates in real life and good mates on Newy Pro shows. So even little interferences or tag matches and stuff, and we have a finish where I do the frog splash as he does the cannonball. So you need 2 people, and I my froggy's pretty light. It's about as heavy as anyone else's. It's not that bad. So people will be like, "Oh, what am I going to take?" And I'd never tell anybody that they're taking the cannonball. I just wait till it's a couple of minutes before you go out, and they're like, "What am I taking?" "Oh, you'll probably take the cannonball. See you out there, though." And then go out there, and you can sort of
Son
see
of a bitch.
I've seen people just go, "I just don't think I can take it." I just don't think I can take it. I took it really bad.
Broke a friggin' rope. And IWA broke a turnbuckle.
I took it really bad one time, and now that I've taken it like that, I just won't. I couldn't make that mistake again. There's plenty of things in wrestling that are the same, but it's no matter how much somebody tells you where you've got to be or how you've got to be, when you got the adrenaline pumping, you're a bit sweaty, your memory's not quite there. If one thing's off, the cannonball's just that thing that if you're one bit off, it's going to suck way worse. Yeah,
and he can't really change one because he jumps from halfway, from the middle of the ring, he jumps to start it, which is different from every other cannonball. So you can't really change when you're in the air.
Yeah, and people don't really understand how good of an athlete Rig is as well. So I think at his heaviest, he probably weighed about 115, 120. I think he's about 107 now. So he's a bigger guy, but he's fit. But he also can do a standing backflip. He is incredibly fast. He's a very athletic guy. So not only is he heavy, he is also running very fast and from the middle of the ring and jumping. It's just it hurts in 5 different ways.
Hopefully you won't have to take it anytime soon.
Hopefully him and I are mates forever.
Carter Deams, mate, thank you so much for joining us. We've hit about our time. For people that want to follow you and everything that you're doing with Newy Pro, mate, how can they do that on the socials?
just Instagram's probably the only thing I'm on. Like, I don't think Facebook pages are alive. Carter Deams Pro on Instagram. If you ever need to hit me up for anything, any questions, any fan mail, any feat requests, they're all at Carter Deams Pro. Yeah, I don't really. I'm unlikely to respond to anything. I think I've got my Facebook linked to my Instagram now, so even Facebook messages come through to Instagram. But yeah, I do love Instagram, so that's where to find me.
Yeah,
don't do Twitter. Don't do anything else.
I know when I messaged you today, I'm like, oh, I'll just take a stab and see if he'll answer it because I don't know how
Was it
often.
on Facebook?
Well, I think mine's linked as well with
It
Facebook.
came through on
stuff.
Instagram message request.
Yeah,
I
because
tell
I
you
think
what's
it's
funny.
like
This
linked.
is my closing note before I was thinking the other day, and there, as you'd know, there's hundreds of wrestling podcasts, and I've never like really been on one. And I was like, somebody talk to me. I was like,
I've been running one for 9 years. No one talks to me.
yeah. I was like, it was only like two or 3 weeks ago that I was just like, who wouldn't mind? I think I'd seen. Not this podcast because I actually do like your guests. I saw a different podcast based on Australian wrestling, and I saw a couple of the guests, and I was just like, they can't be scraping the barrel that badly for a guest.
Oh, shit.
And I'm not going to call anybody out directly. Again, there's hundreds of podcasts, but I was just like, how are these people getting the nod over me? Like, Newy Pro is a pretty big company around Australia. I wrestle at PWA, which is top 1 or 2. I've done some cool shit with Fale Dojo, my tag partners in WWE. Like, surely somebody wants to talk to me. And then nothing. And then today, I saw Todd Mitchell, and I was like, this is the one. This is the one.
Now I'm going to have to edit you, mongrel. But it's all good.
Oh, sorry.
You're all good.
Bleep.
You're all good. But yeah, no, it's literally the fact I was sitting there and I was going, because nowadays I try and bank up a few episodes. So I'm not like, I ended up like just getting like stressing myself out every week. Going, who am I going to have this week? And it would get down to the wire that when I want to release a show, I'm like, I have got nobody. What the? Well, this week I'm not having a show, I guess. But I'm like, I'm going to try and bank up as many as I can in a row.
I've heard sort of the thing what I liked about this podcast is that you didn't ask me how I got into wrestling. You didn't ask me who my favorite wrestler was.
I hate it. I hate those questions.
Oh, bro. Like, I've listened. I love listening to a podcast when it's my mates. Like, I listen to all Riggs podcasts, and they're all just my mates because they might tell a story that makes me laugh that I remember. It's like just fun. And like, I've completely lost train of thought what I was saying. But if I listen to, like, say a Robbie, podcast on a certain company, and they're like, so how'd you get into wrestling? It's like, okay, now I know Robbie Eagle's story. And
I don't want to hear that every time.
Robbie's on a different podcast, and they're like, so how'd you get into wrestling? And Robbie must be like, I've told 25 different people how I've got into wrestling.
Yeah. And that's
I hope to get through my wrestling career without telling anybody how I got into it. That's my goal.
Literally last week, I think, was the first time I've asked that question it has to have been a couple of years. And that was because it was Bro Day, who are a tag team up in North Queensland. So I was like, how do you find somewhere to train in North Queensland? Yeah. Like, how do you stumble on a wrestling school in North Queensland?
It's back to my promo philosophy. Like, if you can't think of anything to say in a promo, don't say it. If you can't think of any better questions to ask in a podcast than how'd you get into wrestling, don't do the podcast.
Yeah.
The person's not interesting enough for you.
And and I guess I'm terrible for the fact, like, I used to, when I first started, I would write out a whole bunch of questions I want to ask this person and all of this sort of stuff. And nowadays it's literally like, no, we'll just, like, I think I messaged you, I said, we'll just have a chat. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It has to be this way.
Because
yeah. My first podcast with Rig, I said, so what are we going to talk about? He goes, I don't know yet. I'm like, okay. See you out there.
Yeah. That's the way I find it more interesting. That way you get more, like, I had Gavin McGavin on the other week, and he mentioned, just like, we had no plans what we were going to talk about, that he mentioned that he did a specialized class on tag team wrestling at the EPW Academy. So we ended up talking about tag team wrestling for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's not something I would have planned to talk to with Gavin, because it's been years since he was a tag team wrestler. But the fact he was doing that, I was like, I haven't really heard of people doing specialized classes before. What do you focus it on? Yeah.
An hour and a half is not enough time sometimes.
No, exactly.
There's meant to be so much stuff. It's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, mate. That is the end of Wrestle Radio Australia for this week. Until next week, I'm Todd Eastman. We'll see you then.
Thanks, brother.
Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.